The historic enrollment crunch in BC universities and colleges has resulted in some of our post-secondary institutions modifying their admission requirements. As recruitment efforts intensify within our province, are BC post-secondary institutions losing local students to other Canadian universities who don't look at provincial exam results in their admission requirements? Retaining students who have been accepted to university or college is the second part of the equation. How does a student's campus life impact their overall academic experience? What do these changes mean for the next group of high school students aiming to obtain a university degree or college diploma? What do parents need to know in order to best support their children who are pursuing a successful post-secondary experience? I'm Paul Shaker, and this is An Education Matter. On our program today is Nancy Johnston, Senior Director, Student Learning and Retention at SFU. Thanks for joining us today, Nancy.
Thank you for having me, Paul.
Given the forecasted enrollment picture for BC colleges and universities as we go forward into the coming year, what should a student think about their chances to get in the university or college of their choice?
Well, probably better than any time previously. They have a myriad of opportunities to choose from. So it's probably one of the best times in terms of choice for students. Not to mention the fact that the economy, certainly in Western Canada and really globally to an extent, is very active. And so beyond just post-secondary choices, these students coming out of high school have a lot of choices in the job market as well. So I guess if there was one watchword that I would say, it's a lot of choices.
Well, that's encouraging for parents and their children. What are some of the trends that we're seeing as students are looking at their options for post-secondary?
Yeah, I think traditionally some students, or a core group of students, always knew they wanted to go on to university. But here in British Columbia in particular, that we've opened a sort of another type of post-secondary opportunity, that being the university college. So we have a number of students who are choosing to perhaps stay closer to home and pursue a degree through a university college system, which is a little bit of a change for this system. And of course it creates a more competitive, if you will, environment for the post-secondary institutions to try and each get the best and brightest students, which they want to do, and to come and complete their degrees in those institutions. So a lot of choices for the students, which creates a little bit more of a competitive atmosphere for the post-secondary institutions.
So if a parent comes in and they're trying to decide which type of institution their child should go to, and their child is there too talking it over with you or the people that work with you, how do you explain to them what are the pros and cons of picking a university college, or some other form of post-secondary education?
Right. Well, I think lately, anyway, in Canada, a natural step has been to go look at the rankings in some publications such as Maclean's or the Globe and Mail, and that really tells a very small part, if any, of the story. I think perhaps the first discussion you might want to have with your child is to try and find out where their passions lie and determine, what's going to motivate them to complete a 2 or 4 year or sometimes longer year program that'll in a direction that they're interested in. So that would be one thing I would do, is sit down, have a heart-to-heart with the child, and then look at the type of environment that child seems to work best in and learn best in. And sometimes it's a more intimate environment. Sometimes it's one where there's a great diversity, a large bustling energy to a campus. And if you have the opportunity, go and visit those campuses. Take a day or have your child go within their school system or even on own and get a sense of the culture of the place. SFU, for example, draws very, very largely from the Lower Mainland, so the opportunity for a visit is relatively easy. And we have a number of those opportunities that are open on a mass scale, parent nights, open houses, and then we have the opportunity for students and parents to come up if they want on individualized tours of faculties and of the whole school. So I would really encourage that they get a sense of what the student wants to do, and then check out the kind of environment they think that student would have the most success in.
I wonder about, from a cost point of view, for some families, I'm sure that the cost of post-secondary is a major concern. Does it differ much according to the different type of institution that a student might go to?
Well, I think it differs by program, perhaps more than by public institution. By and large, the most of the choices in BC remain in the public system, which is somewhat regulated. And so tuitions tend to be more or less the same across the major post-secondaries. But when you start to look at some premium type programs which involve a little bit more outsourcing and so on, then the prices do vary quite a bit. So I'm not sure price would be the primary thing, although I'm not crazy. I'm a parent of someone entering this system, and I don't want, you know, that is a factor, but you hope that that doesn't drive it because there are so many public system choices here available that are reasonably priced.
Now, you talked about majors and programs. I suppose that's a tough choice, isn't it? I know myself, I changed majors quite a few times on the way through, and for some people that really slows the progress down in going toward a degree. So I always envied people who knew from when they were a child in elementary school what they wanted to do and didn't have to grapple with this. How do you help families as they're looking at the situation of what the different program areas are to pick a major? How does one go about helping a student pick a major at university or university college?
Great question. You know, there are those people, we know them from our own experiences, who have a passion towards something. I have a daughter that wants to be a pilot, and she knows that. She thinks she knows that at 16. So that's easier. But the vast majority of people, A, don't know what they want to do when they're 16 years old or 17 years old, and B, even if they did in this particular economy, it's likely they will change that 5, 6, or 7 times over the course of their career. So gone are the days of one career, therefore I will choose this one major and go on. I think you want to, again, find something that's of interest to you now, knowing that a Bachelor of Arts degree or a BSc degree can be applied in so many different job areas, and this linking of a degree to one career outcome, I think, is probably not reflective of the opportunities that are out there now. If you know you want to be something that's perhaps in a trade area, that makes great sense. You need to go to trade school, get your ticket. But if you want a more broad education with multitude of applications, then I think don't panic if you or your child doesn't know what they want to be when they grow up, because they'll probably be several things.
Yes, I know from talking to our business faculty that approximately half of the MBA students didn't come through as business majors. They came out of all the other fields, including science and technology, as well as the humanities and social sciences. Now, once a student gets to university, what can a parent do to help assure as much success as possible for them in their performance at university? I suppose the first year is the hardest, but maybe that's a cliche and not true.
No, it's probably a cliche and true. It's a tough year. In some senses, because we draw so much locally, the transition might be slightly easier. Many of our students do live at home, although we have a growing residential population, and we have many programs that are part of the residents' population. I think a guest later on will speak to those that help in that transition. But no, that first year is a tough transition. It's a tough transition even when you live down the hill from SFU or near SFU in Surrey. There are a lot of things that are different from a high school experience. So a parent can be supportive, but they also have to recognize that we're dealing now with their child as an adult. And so you've probably heard this term helicopter parents, where they hover very close to wherever their child is going, and in some ways probably are a little overly present for the experience that we're trying to present, which is to this child as a growing, developing individual. So sometimes the helicopter parent could probably stand to back off a bit, and I'm giving myself a life lesson here because I'll be that parent very soon myself, just to stand back and have the child come to you. A lot more parents themselves have university experiences, but they're 20, 30 years old now, and it's a very different experience for their child. So you want to be there and be supportive, but let the kid have their own experience.
I know that in my own experience as a parent, I felt that, and I have advised people in my family to stay particularly involved with the child during the first term that they're at university, so they get off on the right foot and don't wait until bad grades come in. And if you're going to visit, try to visit early in that first term and see if they're on the right path, if they've taken care of their health and these sorts of things. Do health issues enter into this much?
Oh, very much so. I mean, students in some cases are living on their own for the first time. They maybe never prepared a balanced meal plan for themselves over the week, or they're distracted, or They really settle into the partying well and maybe not so well into the exercise part, and so balance does become an issue. And again, yes, parents can help there, and also the university has many programs that try and help support an active lifestyle, a healthy lifestyle choices, and both through education and the provision of services. So yeah, I think that's really good advice for a parent to check in early, and I think it's very good advice for schools to check in early days with students, because those first few weeks can really determine whether a person is going to stay or not for the long term.
I know another part of your role at SFU is to oversee what we call experiential learning. And I'd like you to talk a little bit about that, because I'm not sure that people understand as much about this aspect of our curriculum.
Sure, thanks. Well, experiential learning, I think, is one of those experiences that you can have at university that really brings the whole education piece to life. Generally, what we mean by it here is educational opportunities where students get to take meaning from actually doing the activity. So if you were, for example, wanting to learn about your profession in accounting, you might take a cooperative education experience, which allows you to go out for 4 months long and work as an accountant, putting sort of your theory from the classroom to use out in the workplace. And then the school mediates that learning by helping the student kind of make meaning from the experiences that they're having from the workplace. And employers also mediate that learning activity by having a curriculum that emerges through the daily activities and the goals and the objectives of the employer. So it's a really interesting way to create life, I guess, and bring meaning to the theory that we learn in classrooms, and have them become part of the student's experience. They can also go on field schools, study abroad, do service learning or volunteer opportunities, but things that engage them in the activity.
Sounds like a wonderful array of things for the student to do that are beyond the classic face-to-face in the classroom. Stay tuned, because when we come back, Tim Rahilly joins us to talk about succeeding in university or college.
For more than 40 years, the Faculty of Education at SFU has been delivering academic programs that are innovative and responsive. Based on the academic research of our professors and the expertise of practicing teachers from your communities, our programs are designed to meet classroom needs. As a community, we're piecing together a successful education experience for students today and in the future.
Our next guest is Tim Rahilly, Senior Director of Student and Community Life at SFU. Welcome, Tim.
Nice to be here.
It's a big event going from high school to university, and we wanted to talk with you a little bit about the transition. Could you reflect a little bit to help parents and students about the transition from secondary school to university?
Sure. I think the transition really starts at the time of application, if not before. It's this idea of finishing something, and as students finish high school, they begin to know that they're going into the unknown. And so they begin to go through a process, as do parents, and part of the investigation that was discussed earlier about where you're going and what's the culture absolutely plays a role. And I think the main thing that parents and students want to know is, what are the academic expectations as well as what's the social reality. So I think it's fair to say that when that kind of transition takes place, students become a little bit insecure, and they're searching for information, and programs that we offer and most schools offer, like New Student Orientation, really help so that students can come on our campuses, meet people, make those kinds of connections, begin to understand the academic expectations. Now, with trends in online and technology, we're seeing the transition take place even earlier, as schools are offering social networking before students set foot on campus through things like Facebook or other social networking sites.
Well, that's encouraging. Maybe they're doing something more scientific about roommate selection than when I went to university. And the on-campus part of orientation, could you tell us, has it changed over the years, and what are some of the elements of an on-campus orientation today?
Well, I think the best practice in orientation really does address both that social and academic aspect I mentioned. A lot of schools have orientation programs which are essentially glorified pep rallies. So what they're trying to achieve there is building identity, making sure that people feel that they're a part of something by having the t-shirt and learning the school song or what have you. What we're trying to do here at SFU is to make sure that we do a little bit of that, but the main thing we're trying to do is make sure that people have a clear understanding of where to go for answers. We try to do some early kind of motivational, I'll call it motivational inoculation. We're trying to make sure that students understand the cycle of a semester. They understand common issues that occur for students and know where best to get help. We talk to them about their social life as well as their academic life, and we do talk to them about their relationship with their families, who can be a tremendous support.
That is something I was going to ask you about, is some advice for the parent on the appropriate way to be supportive during that transition, and then perhaps what's not so appropriate.
Right. Well, let's start with what's appropriate. I think for parents, when I speak with them, it's important for them to recognize the transition that they're going through at the same time as the transition that their student, their adult child, if you will, is going through. For a lot of parents, it's a difficult process to see the student become more independent. Often when students who are going to live on campus in residence come here, the student is very in contact, daily, hourly. They're online, instant messaging with their parent. And there comes a point in the semester where the student is settling down and making those kinds of connections, and sometimes they suddenly drop off and there's no communication with the parents. And the parents have a hard time with that and begin to become concerned. So I think it's really good for parents to kind of set up expectations, have a discussion with the student about when they're going to touch base, what kind of support they can offer, what kind of support they can't offer. I think it's really important for parents to not try to solve problems for students, but be there to assist in the thinking and the problem solving, and allow the student to go forward and interact with people on campuses, the professors, administrators, support givers, so that the student learns those skills, important life skills of learning how to solve their problems and interact with a bureaucracy, if you will.
A big choice that's inherent in all of this is where a student lives while they go to university. And in the lower mainland, of course, you have a lot of options that way. And it's not just living at home versus living on campus, because many students live independently but not at home or on campus. What do you say to people as they're weighing the different options they have about residential life for the student?
I think if you can afford it, because there is a cost associated with it, that there's a true benefit to living in residence. What happens in residence is the process of transition is accelerated, and students have almost an instant community. They have supports, and it allows them to have a true social integration. We're seeing more residential life programs that have an academic component as well. So for instance, if there are particular problem areas in a first-year program like a BSc, it's quite common for people to be concerned about math. So in the residential program, they may have some support for that, or study groups or tutorials that are set up. I think it's a great experience. A lot of students tell us that what they like to do is live in residence for at least a year, to make those kind of friends, to understand the campus, and then they feel much more secure about perhaps living in the community.
I was going to say, interestingly, it's not just people that can't commute that live in residence. You know, I'm personally aware of a number of students who are athletes on one of the athletic teams that we have here that have chosen to live in a townhouse situation. All of them are in commuting distance, but to have the kind of experience that Tim is referring to was really important for them. They're on the same schedule, they're mutually supportive, and so they've chosen to live in residence even though they live in Burnaby or Port Moody, Coquitlam.
About half our residents actually live in the greater Vancouver area, and they report that there's tremendous benefit. Also, studies show that students who live in residence do better academically. And there is an advantage there. I myself didn't live in residence, and if I had it to do over, I think I would.
Well, I've experienced every model. I lived away and made a lot of friends in the dormitory my freshman year, my first year at university. But my daughter lived at home for her university career, and I think we made that work in a good way. So some of it's a personal decision. Of course, a lot of families, they're not ready to live any longer with an 18 or 19-year-old on either side of that equation. Another aspect of the university's services is health and counseling. And I think it would be good for families to know the kind of services a university like ours provides in those areas.
Right. Every major university does have student health, student counseling available. I think it's fair to say that there is a stress associated with beginning university and going through a university program. There's a really great book called The College of the Overwhelmed by the Director of Health and Counseling at Harvard, and he makes the argument that going to school is not great for your health. And so it's really important that students pay attention to this, that they learn the skills of eating well, that they recognize when they're stressed, that when something happens, whether it be the common cold or something else, that they address it in a way that early, so that their semester isn't put at risk. And so we have personal counselors, we have health promotion folks, we have doctors and nurses, we offer flu shot clinics, everything to help students really take care of themselves.
And I understand in Nancy's area there's the related field of career counseling. We almost got to that. We're talking about majors. Could you say a word about the career counseling that's available?
Sure. Well, it's available free of charge to every student here at SFU, and we really encourage people to access this much earlier. It used to be back in the day that people would kind of, oh my gosh, I'm graduating in a month, I should go find out what I can do with this. And we're actually encouraging people to, with their parents, early days as they're making choices about university, sit down, and even though we can't know definitively, let's think about what you might like to do and what kinds of academic paths give you that sort of breadth.
No, there is an overlap between this kind of career counseling and personal counseling. We also do see parents and students together because there's a disconnect with regard to what the student wants to do and what the family wants them to do. 80% of the students in the system are there to get a good job. That's what they tell us when they come in. We want to help them with that, but we also want to help them get an education. And so what we need to do is really understand a balance between what's available job-wise in the market, what the person's passion is, because student success is strongly related to a motivation to actually do it. It's very hard for 4 years to do something you don't like, and also have the parents recognize that they may not have all the information. A lot of parents want their students to be professionals. They want them to have a business degree, they want to be a dentist, they want to be a doctor, what have you, and they may not have a clear understanding of what's related in achieving that, and they might not have given a chance to look at some of the other professions that are available.
And nothing is a sure thing. The economy changes so quickly that if you try to predict what is going to be the hot market for your child 5 years down the line, and if you're good at it, you've got a good job, because that's a very difficult thing. You know, students certainly entering computing science in 1990 thought they were coming out with a ticket to a $100,000 a year job, and then we crashed.
Yes, my brother got that kind of good advice when he was coming through school and became a hospital administrator just at a time when that was a great thing to come out in. I guess special populations are a part of your province also.
Yeah, we try to make sure that we are addressing the needs of all students, but we recognize that there are students that have special needs. So for instance, in Nancy's area, they have the Center for Students with Disabilities. More and more, we're seeing students coming in with mental health issues to university that previously wouldn't have made it. But you know, high schools are supporting more and more. We have the First Nations Student Center here, which specializes in providing the support for both urban and rural First Nations folks who are coming to university, making sure they have the kind of cultural support and role models that they need when they come to university. There are other subpopulations that either we provide support to or our student society provides support to, so women, gays and lesbians, whatever the case may be.
And we're increasing our support towards international students. That's a big push for Simon Fraser. We're wanting to internationalize our campus, and we have targets that we want to increase the number of students who study and come here from abroad. abroad, as well as a number of Canadian students that go elsewhere to study for some part of their degree. So we have SFU International, which supports our outgoing and our incoming students.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
You know, both students and parents, they come to me and they talk about grades. They wonder, as a parent, how can my child get good grades? And as a child, you're always wondering, you know, how can I get better grades rather than worse grades? Grades are important. However, what I want to tell parents is that grades are only half of the equation. There's earning grades and then there's learning. There's learning versus earning. And when it comes to grades, it's okay to ask your kid, what grade did you get today in language arts, say? But it's also important to ask the specific question about learning. What did you learn in language arts today? So what I want to tell parents is, let's ask about learning and not only earning.
University admission is a key competitive event for many young people. At its best, the process helps students find the right post-secondary institution and major. When the admission process is over, however, the challenge of moving to a degree remains. Earning that degree in a timely and commendable fashion challenges the maturity of students even more than it does their academic talent. Universities put a good deal of effort into maximizing the opportunity for such success, and it is, of course, beneficial for families to be aware of these resources. Post-secondary education is a gateway to success for many persons, but the process is not automatic, and students and parents should be alert to the elements of this educational landscape. Thanks for tuning in to Your Education Matters.
We welcome your comments, questions, feedback, and suggestions for show topics. Contact us via email at yem@sfu.ca or by phone at 778-782-8517. The views and opinions presented in this program are not necessarily those of SFU or its faculties, staff, or administration.